Hey, what's going on everybody? Commander Crane here, and we are back with yet another video. So today's going to be a little bit different. Today's going to be a discussion video. From my understanding, I don't think I've ever done a discussion video, or at least if I have, it was a while ago. But this is going to be the first of, not necessarily a series per se, but just, this is something I was thinking about the other day, and I wanted to discuss it here. So, we're going to hop right into it here. So, obviously, you saw the title of the video. Is Jace the Mind Sculptor safe for Pioneer? So, for those who've been playing Magic for a while, Jace the Mind Sculptor was always kind of like, it was the boogeyman for a long time. It was like, oh, it's too powerful, like it's way too good. And I believe it was 2017 was when Jace was finally unbanned in Modern. It was banned, I believe it was on the initial ban list. And then it never got off of the ban list until 2017, and now it's been legal in Modern for, let's see, as the recording of this video, about 5.5 years. So, wow, seems like a long time actually. So, we're gonna talk about not necessarily pros and cons, but my position personally is that Jace is safe for Pioneer. I'm gonna go over the reasons of why I think Jace is okay for Pioneer, and then at the end we'll go over some potential things as to why it could not be safe for Pioneer. So in general, once again, this is purely opinion based. If you have differing opinions, obviously let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me, if you think I'm just some ridiculous Gruul mage that doesn't know blue cards, which is very likely, just let me know. So, all right. So, I made 3 specific reasons as to why I think it is okay in Pioneer, but first we're going to go over Jace the Mind Sculptor for those who don't know. What is Jace the Mind Sculptor? So Jace the Mind Sculptor is a Planeswalker from Worldwake. 3 loyalty for 2 and 2 blue, Planeswalker Jace, +2, look at the top card of target player's library. You may put that card on the bottom of that player's library. It's also considered a Fate Seal. 0, draw 3 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order. That is also what's considered a Brainstorm, because that's the exact effect of Brainstorm. -1, return target creature to its owner's hand, which is an unsummon. And then -12, exile all cards from target player's library, then that player shuffles their hand into their library. So essentially, their whole deck's gone, and their hand, that's their library. That's what it is. So, obviously a very powerful Planeswalker at face value. 4 abilities. Most Planeswalkers with 4 abilities tend to be on the more powerful side. I can't think of too many all of a sudden, but I know like one that comes to mind is Chandra, Torch of Defiance. I know that's one of the more powerful walkers. Obviously the Boluses usually have 4 ability, but they're hard to cast, but they're strong. So yes, Jace the Mind Sculptor, very powerful card, and obviously for those who don't know, with Pioneer, it's Return to Ravnica forward, and this was a couple blocks before Return to Ravnica. So, actually not even a couple, it's probably a decent amount. So, but, yes. So this is Jace the Mind Sculptor. We're going to go over a couple reasons as to why I personally think that it is okay for Pioneer. So our first reason is, number 1, it's not seeing any play in Modern. So I know it's a little hard to tell from this specific picture, but all you need to know is in this blue-white control list, they're playing 7 Planeswalkers. They're playing 4 Teferi Time Ravelers, banned in Pioneer. They're playing 2 Teferi Hero of Dominarias and 1 Wandering Emperor in the 4-drop slot. They're not even playing Jace the Mind Sculptor. Now I know what you're saying. Oh, well, just because the card's not seeing play in Modern doesn't mean it's okay for Pioneer. I'm not going to sit here and tell you Goriel's Vengeance is okay to print in Pioneer. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that. I'm not going to say Through the Breach. Obviously, I know that there's a line between, for those who play competitive Pokemon, for OU, just because it's not good in OU doesn't mean it's not good enough for UU. I understand, and that's kind of what Modern and Pioneer is to a certain extent. But yes, it's not good in Modern blue-white control. Quite frankly, I think it's been a while since I've seen a Jace. Obviously, as opposed to Wandering Emperor, yes, you could play a Jace. I'm not trying to tell you that Jace is bad in Modern, but what does it really do? I mean, like with how the removal is in the format, like Planeswalkers are extremely easy to actually get off the board now. Back in the day, the only way was combat and Hero's Downfall. Now there's 1,000 different ways. Like every red spell that hits creatures also hits Planeswalkers now. So realistically, I mean, it's really not super awesome in Modern. It hasn't seen play in at least a couple of years, really since the Modern Horizon sets. It hasn't seen any play. So that being said, I think it could be something considered for Pioneer. At least first reason being, it's not anywhere in Modern. Second reason being, kind of leading into the first thing, the Wandering Emperor is better. It's in the metagame. So with Pioneer's a lot more creature heavy format, and Wandering Emperor just does things a lot better. It's great at getting the game over with. You can obviously put in all the samurais, but the -2 exiling a tapped creature and being able to flash it in is just incredible, especially in Pioneer. I mean, heck, it's seen play in Modern too as well. So the Wandering Emperor is just a really, really great card. Like personally, like if I'm playing against a blue-eye control deck and I have the choice of playing against the Wandering Emperor or Jace, I'd rather play against the Jace for sure. Maybe, I'm a control deck, I would rather play against the Wanderer. Well, of course you would, because it's good. Like, Jace is much better against control decks than it is against aggro decks. But here, if that's the counterpoint of, I don't want to see Jace because of control, I mean, like that, I feel like that's not a really good argument for the most part. So, considering, like, I'm a creature deck, they're both okay against creature decks, I would rather play against Jace. Just Wandering Emperor, I think, is a lot stronger in the metagame. It's a 4-mana walker with flash, gets rid of creatures permanently. It doesn't just bounce them, it just gets rid of it. So that is kind of like my second reasoning as to why I think Jace should be in Pioneer. Third reason, there are no fetch lands to be able to abuse it. No, I know what you're saying. It was when it was banned in Standard back in the day, there were no fetch lands in the metagame. Yeah, I understand. But it also was a lot weaker power level, as opposed to, 2010 Standard is not the same as 2023 Pioneer. It's not even the same thing. Like, of course, like, Jace in a Standard metagame is going to be good because the general power level is lower. But Pioneer, at this point, is getting close to, like, mid 2010s Modern. We're getting close to that point. We're not quite there. Some ways are different than others, but essentially with Jace's Brainstorm ability, being able to draw 3 and put 2 back, crack a fetch land, shuffle them away. So essentially it's draw 3 cards, put the worst 2 back, shuffle them back in, and just get rid of them. Don't have to worry about them, at least hopefully. So being able to do that is really, really, really good for Jace. And without having fetch lands, like drawing 3 and putting 2 back with no shuffle effects is not as good. Like at that point, like a ponder effect or a preordain effect is better than a brainstorm effect without fetch lands generally. So obviously some people would debate that because I know they're actually drawing 3. It's a little bit different dynamic, but essentially without the fetch lands, its 0 is not as good as you'd think. So that's just my opinion. I really don't think that. I think without the fetch lands, Jace is just not as good. It really isn't. So that being said, what are some potential issues we could run into? So obviously, Jace, as like in a vacuum, is an extremely, extremely strong planeswalker. You could probably argue that it is the best mono blue planeswalker. Narset, I know, is in that discussion, which Narset does things a lot different than Jace, though. They're not the same card at all. But Jace is strong. I mean, if you're playing against control decks, if they're bouncing your creatures, like that's kind of not the biggest issue. But the issue is if you don't have any action in your hand or on the battlefield, and your opponent plays a Jace and they go +2, yeah, you can keep it, you're probably done. Like, the game is probably over at that point. Especially if they have a Jace with counter magic, and they're just +2ing, yeah, you can keep it, the game's probably over. Because even if you're lucky enough to have something good on top, they tell you to put on the bottom, and then something else is good, they could just counter it. I mean, so more often than not, Jace, like, if you don't have a board presence, you could just be dead to Jace the Mind Sculptor. Which, I mean, that's true for a lot of cards, though. Teferi, Hero of Dominaria is essentially the same, does the same dynamic. You know, if you don't have a board presence and they're just +1ing drawing cards, you're probably dead too. So, I mean, at least if we're comparing it to Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, Teferi is better. It's just better. In terms of what it does as the same as Jace in the metagame. But, you know, I'm rambling a little bit now. Obviously, there are potential things that could go bad. But even if we take a look at the Pioneer metagame right now, I wish I had pulled up a graphic for this. The best decks right now, mono green, black red mid range, and I would say number 3 is probably Lotus combo. Number 4 is probably like mono white humans, like a humans deck, and then it just kind of just, you know, and then it's like spirits and whatever. It goes on from there. You could argue like 3, 4, and 5, but 1 and 2 are pretty set in stone. So, no really blue-white control. Like, blue-white control was good for some time. I know it was, for a minute there, it was like the big 3 in Pioneer. It was blue-white control, mono green, and then the Rakdos deck. It was kind of like those were the big 3, but control heavily fell out of favor. It really did. Would Jace help it? Yes, it would help it, but it wouldn't make the deck overly, you know, an issue. You know, they already have, like, in the 4-drop slot, they're already playing multiple Wandering Emperors. I believe the number's 2, it can be 3 sometimes, but, so they play, like, 2 Wandering Emperors, 1 Jace, 2 Jaces. I mean, it's not going to change that much. I mean, a Planeswalker is not going to transform an entire metagame, like, especially with, you know, the amount of like, every set now gets strong Planeswalkers. Every single set. And half of the time, they don't even do anything. They really don't do anything in the metagame. I think Wandering Emperor has been probably the biggest impact Planeswalker in Pioneer since Pioneer became a format. Before that, really nothing else. Most other Planeswalkers are just like okay, but nothing like overly crazy. So that being said, there's a lot of different ways to answer Planeswalkers in general. You know, like for instance, like we just got Obliterating Bolt. Like if they unless they immediately play it and tick up, which normally they're not going to do. So okay, so they play they play Jace on 4, they brainstorm, they pass. Strangle, Obliterating Bolt. Any hasty threat that like mono red plays or anything like that, it's immediately going to go down. I mean, like mono green, they don't care. And mono green's like, sure, play your Jace. I don't care. You know, like Rakdos probably isn't going to care that much either, especially since they have a lot of ways to get rid of Planeswalkers too. I just don't think it's really, I just don't think it's an issue personally. So I obviously, based on everything that I presented, I'm in the boat of Jace is perfectly fine to put into Pioneer. I don't think it would be an issue, and I think a lot of it goes into how would they put it into Pioneer. Because Jace the Mind Sculptor, I mean, realistically, you could put any set with Jace featured in the set. You could do, I mean, like, Dominaria United, with Liliana the Veil, they just put her in Dominaria United. I mean, people are like, oh, what does it have to do with the Veil? Nothing. It's just Liliana. Liliana, all the different like versions of Liliana. That's still Liliana, the Dreadhorde Majesty. I think, Death's Majesty. There we go. Like that's the same Liliana as Liliana of the Dark Realms, as Liliana Vess, as Liliana of the Veil. Just as Jace, the Living Guild Pact, is the same as the Mind Sculptor, is the same as the Bellerin, is the same as Telepath Unbound. Like Jace, it's not like it's separate characters. It's the same character. Would it make sense to put the Living Guild Pact in a non-Ravnica set? Of course not. I'm not trying to tell you it would make sense. But what I'm saying is, it's Jace as a character. So, as the time of this recording, the Phyrexia All Will Be One has not been released, so we don't really know what's going to happen with Jace. Spoiler, I'm not going to say what is happening with Jace currently, but let's just put it this way. They could reprint it in Pioneer if they wanted to. Over the last 2-3 years, Wizards of the Coast has been printing cards into Pioneer. Like, for instance, I know with Phyrexia, we're getting Phyrexian Arena. We're getting, there was another big reprint too that I feel like I'm forgetting and I'm terrible about it. But like, you know, they put in like a Zusa, they put in like Solemn Simulacrum. They're printing just like old modern cards into the format. Oh, Go for the Throat was just in Brothers War. So they've been reprinting just like miscellaneous cards into Pioneer that are like outdated Modern cards, so to speak. So essentially, yes, I think Jace is perfectly fine to be put into Pioneer. But also, let me know. What are you thinking potentially? Do you think I'm completely ridiculous and I'm just like saying really, really dumb things? Or do you agree with me? So, obviously, the last screen. Thanks for watching. For those who clicked on this video, if there's any other videos you want to check out on my channel, obviously, there's going to be a link. I'd like to thank everybody for joining me. Again, let me know in the comments. What do you think? Do you think Jace is fine for Pioneer? Do you think it's not fine for Pioneer? Let me know below, and I'll see you in the next video.